Hello, everybody. This is Sree from Biz Buzz. What matters the most in your business? Sponsored by My Work Belt. My Work Belt is a all-in-one productive software, particularly catering to service-based small businesses all over the world. And if you have not checked it out, please take a look at it on www.myworkbelt.com. And today I have a guest, Craig. Craig is a principal ally at Allies for Me. They are marketing gurus and they are masters in helping businesses that are on high trust, high ticket uh, sales. It could be a product or service. As long as you feel that you are a high trust and high ticket, you want to contact with them on alliesforme.com. Craig, how are you doing?
Sree, I'm doing wonderfully. It's so good to see you again today.
Excellent, excellent. So, Craig, you have a podcast. I have a podcast. Obviously, we both are talking and we are presenting our knowledge and sharing our experiences with everybody. So, my thought here is how is a small business owner can take advantage of hosting a podcast or being a guest on a podcast because these kind of opportunities are all over the internet these days.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's become kind of a new wave of marketing. I forgot the number of podcasts. There's an insane number of podcasts if you look at them listed, but there's only about 500,000 that are active. I think it's about 400,000. And what happens, I forgot the statistic, but it's like um I think 90% podcasts end before their 20th episode. And
All right. Hey, I made it nearly 40.
yeah, I'm getting close to recording my 200th episode.
Okay.
And the and you know the I'll give you my experience. And different people have had different experiences. Before we came on, I was interviewing somebody, a gentleman named Norm Farrar, who has the number one Amazon resellers podcast, and I'd been on his podcast before, and so I invited him on mine. And Norm's built a massive audience, and he's done amazingly well. I've not been nearly as successful, but some of that is just the audience that I'm targeting. The type of people that I want to connect with is a smaller audience than Amazon resellers. But the other thing is, for me, the biggest value that I've gotten out of podcasting is networking. I've
Uh-huh.
just been able to meet some amazing, amazing people and tell their story on my podcast.
Absolutely.
And I'll give you an example. I had and we were talking about that. So there's a service called Podmatch. We were just talking about that.
We were talking about.
And so I have a Podmatch account and I go on as a guest. I also have a host account. And so there was this guy who applied to my podcast, and I was this close to rejecting him because he didn't fit the profile of my ideal guest. And I was getting ready to send the rejection notice, and I just kind of paused and I thought, Craig, you'd be an idiot to not bring him on your podcast.
Hmm.
So the guy who applied was John Hewitt. Have you ever heard of Jackson Hewitt Tax Services? I don't think they're as big now as they used to be. Um, but he was the founder of Jackson Hewitt Tax Services.
Oh, wow.
And then there's another tax service called Liberty Tax Service. They have
I heard that. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so Jackson Hewitt, the board decided they didn't want John Hewitt in the company anymore, so they ousted him and he started Liberty Tax Services. So this guy has launched the only two national brands, national competitors to H&R Block. And I remember sitting there thinking, Craig, you idiot. There were people who would pay him good money to get his advice.
Is that
And
right?
just
Yeah.
because just because you have a podcast, he's asking you if he can come give you his advice for a half hour at no charge.
Yeah.
And And so I interviewed him. It was a wonderful episode. When I was talking to Norm, we were talking about how to build an audience. And here I'm talking to one of the most successful podcasters out there, and he's teaching me what I need to do to build an audience. And so, how I quantify that for the business is really hard. But think about it this way: if you would benefit from learning, hearing some of the best wisdom from other successful business leaders out there,
Hmm. Hmm.
it's a win. Just from that perspective, it's a win. From another perspective, is it's a great opportunity to meet these people and build relationships, because when you do that, then you can you never know if you have an issue that somebody can solve. Um,
That is an
somebody,
interesting. Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, they know people who need your services. And they know people who can help you solve problems. It's just an amazing way of networking.
It is interesting that you mentioned the value. See, most of the people, they don't see the value that way. Most of the people who are quitting at the 20th podcast, they are looking for making money today.
Yeah,
Now, I launched my podcast. I want to start making money tomorrow. And that is where a lot of people, they start podcast and they fail. Now it's the same stats goes with starting any business, right? If you take a statistics from SBA, I don't know exact number, but this is nearly 80% of the business fail within 1 year, and then another 80% of the rest fails within 5 years. Uh, I'm I'm not I'm not exaggerating the numbers, but I'm not precise on the exact statistics, but along the lines. So most of the people fail on continuing this podcast because they don't see the value outside of the monetary benefit would in
yeah.
just.
And that's a problem. And I would say if that's the reason you're doing podcasting, you're probably doing it for the wrong reason. And it's when you start doing it for the right reason, you might find that what you really want starts happening naturally. So one of my neighbors lives about 13 minutes away from me is Joe Rogan. And yeah, he has the number one podcast. You look shocked. And but when you listen to Joe Rogan talk about how he started the podcast, he said, I just wanted to hang out and talk to some of my buddies, and we hit record.
Yeah,
And so he never started podcasting with the view of, hey, I'm going to
becoming a
become,
celebrity.
yeah. And and now, I mean, look at him. He's interviewing presidential candidates. He's interviewed Mark Zuckerberg, think about the people who've
Celebrity
been on
he
his,
interviewed already.
yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, he's talked to Elon Musk. I know that's a controversial name now, but he had cut it any way you want it. Elon's the richest guy in the world, and he's been on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Before
Um,
he got into politics, not today.
yes, and so that's look at the doors that are opened up to Joe Rogan because he just wanted to hang out and talk to some of his buddies and learn something in the process.
It's an interesting way that you put it, but it's always difficult for everybody to see. Oh, look at Facebook. You can become the Facebook. Right? How many Facebooks happen from the dorm rooms, right? It is difficult for the people to comprehend that. You can say it, you can show all the beautiful stars, but they are too far to reach. Yes, we all know that a 1,000-mile journey starts with one step, but within 10 steps, everybody collapses. That's what we are looking at. But what we are trying to get across here is there is a value in doing podcasts. Either you be a guest or you be a host. Both ways, you have a value that you can reap the reward from. not necessarily all the time monetary reward, which is also a possibility. But most importantly, knowledge is the reward that you will be gaining through these podcasts. So if sometimes you may feel like my business is only a local business and I don't have to serve national level people, and I don't serve national level people. But that doesn't mean the small business owners don't have to gain the knowledge from people all across the US, all across the world for that matter, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. Um, Chances are, if you have a local business, there's somebody who's done very well in that business category outside your locale. And a lot of people who've been successful, I've found, like to come on podcast and just talk about what they've learned and they want to share the knowledge. So it's a win. I think people should do it. Um, it's I was a reluctant podcast host. I wanted to be a podcast guest, and I got talked into becoming a podcast host. And I'll tell you here. And here's something else that I think a lot of people will miss. My goal is to do 2 interviews a week. 2 times a week, I'm stepping up in front of the camera and addressing an audience and connecting with somebody. It gives me an opportunity to practice my cadence. I can practice timing. I go on stage twice a week and practice being on stage twice a week. I don't know a business owner out there that doesn't need that skill.
Absolutely correct. You nailed it. Right. Thank you very much for sharing that. And in conclusion, I can see that there is a tremendous value that you can reap as a reward by being a podcast host and by being a podcast guest. So, for those who are out there, small business owners, take some tidbits out of here. And the key is being consistent, not just simply do one, two, five, 10 podcasts and be done with it. That's not the case. We are telling you don't need to lift the mountains. You don't need to move the mountains. You just have to do one or two podcasts. It probably takes no more than an hour. Once you get into the rolling within a week, you will be able to continue to do that. By doing so, you will be seen as an authority in the market and you are on the stage for multiple people and you will be gaining a lot of connections through the networking and more and more and more benefits from this. Am I right, Craig?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you very much for joining us on this podcast again, Craig. And as always, we are learning more from you every time you come on this podcast. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day.